Welcome back. Former State Senator Jose Javier Rodriguez is running for State Attorney General. I caught up with him this week to talk about his campaign.
Well, listen, I'm running for Attorney General because we need somebody in the office of Attorney General who puts the people over the powerful. You're supposed to be the people's lawyer when you serve as Attorney General. We haven't had one in decades. As Attorney General, I would focus on keeping us safe, right? Keeping our kids safe, tackling the opioid crisis. I would focus on the affordability crisis. I would use the powers of the Office of Attorney General to, for example, give property owners and homeowners relief when it comes to our property insurance costs, when it comes to the never-ending rate hikes coming out of Tallahassee. And I would focus on corruption. My entire career as a lawyer has been fighting for the little guy, right? Fighting for workers who got cheated out of their wages or homeowners being exploited, fighting the powerful and corrupt whenever I needed to. And that was my legislative service as well. I was the one going after the biggest and most powerful interests in the state when they were taking advantage of people, when they were taking advantage of taxpayers, and trying to make us pay more for our bills. And I think, when I talk about corruption, when I talk about economic issues, a lot of people say, well, they look at the Attorney General's office and they're not entirely sure what the Attorney General is supposed to be doing. And I say that's because we haven't had a real Attorney General for decades here. The current Attorney General is probably the most corrupt of a string of corrupt Attorney Generals we've had. And he is absolutely the least independent Attorney General we've had. And you need an independent Attorney General to look after the interests of the people of Florida. We haven't had that.
Let me jump in here. I want to get to more of that, but you said something almost at the outset, talking about property insurance and the role that the Attorney General can play. I'm not clear as to what exactly authority the Attorney General would have to change or alter property insurance rates.
That's because you've lived in Florida. Again, like I say, in the last couple of decades, we have not had an Attorney General who has used the power of the office the way that it's supposed to be. You have investigatory power. You have the power to bring lawsuits. In other states, it is not uncommon for Attorney Generals to bring actions against insurance companies, right? To conduct investigations on how their constituents and the people in their state are being treated. We do not have that here, right? So there's a series of questions we would start with. How is it the CEOs can make $50 million and yet they don't have enough money to pay for claims once storms come through, right? So the investigatory power, the lawsuits, and if that's I hear this from people all the time. They hear me talk about economic issues and the affordability crisis as a candidate for Attorney General, and they sort of scratch their heads. And the reason they scratch their heads is because we have not had an Attorney General who will use the power of the office for the people and not the powerful. The insurance companies get whatever they want in Tallahassee, right? I mean, that's the reality. And that needs to change. If I'm Attorney General, it will change.
One of Uthmayer's projects that he and the governor did is Alligator Alcatraz. I'm curious, as Attorney General, what, if anything, you could do about Alligator Alcatraz and what your views overall are about their use of emergency powers to create that detention center out in the Everglades.
Well, I appreciate you asking it. So there's the how they've done it and what they're doing. I think the what they're doing, we could talk about the conditions. We could talk about the use of cruelty as immigration policy, but you're hitting on the how they're doing it. And you mentioned this claim of emergency powers. It's a claim that fits barely on one page from 2023. And they're using this claim of emergency powers to seize land from local government, plan this in secret, and go around the legislature to get their hands on $450 million, which is mostly money that's supposed to be for emergency preparedness and to help us recover after storms. The other piece of the emergency powers that they're using is it allows them to do no bid contracts. And I and others were saying, well, we know what's going to happen here, right? It's the contributors to the campaigns of DeSantis and Uthmayer's friends that are going to get the contracts. And it only took a couple days for intrepid reporters to follow the money and make that case. I think so. I think, when you look at it, it's really an abuse of power in terms of how they've done it. And when I mentioned the conditions issues that keep coming out in terms of the people at this jail in the Everglades not having access to legal counsel, having trouble reaching their families, with the weather, with the cages, it's terrible. And I think for us in Florida, we're paying the costs in multiple ways, right? The way that they're doing this, the community members that we know that are there, family members who are wondering, the overwhelming majority of those at that facility do not have any criminal violent past, right? They told us that that's what they were going to focus on, and that's not at all what they've been focusing on. That's what's been coming out. But from the perspective of taxpayers and those who, frankly, want checks and balances here in Florida, it is an absolute abuse of power, what they're doing. And I think the other piece to it is Department of Homeland Security has not committed to reimbursing the state of Florida for this, right? So they've signed us on to almost $500 million a year of a project that, frankly, is putting law enforcement in a really difficult position, right? Because of the conditions there. And it's harming our communities as well.
I think it might be helpful for people to better understand your history, that when you talk about, going after special interests and then having them turn around against you, to talk, perhaps talk a little bit about what you saw and what you experienced in that state Senate race, that you ended up losing by a handful of votes, and that it became clear there were ghost candidates running that race, and that powerful interest, primarily, I believe, Florida Power and Light, financing efforts against you. What did you draw? What was that experience like, and what did you draw from that? What conclusions did you come to following what happened in that case?
Well, thank you for asking. So in 2020, Republican operatives, and we later learned FPL, ran a scheme to try to confuse voters with a ghost candidate. I want to commend the Miami-Dade State Attorney's Office for doing a fantastic job with the prosecution of those who were responsible. But I think, I was the target of that, right? I was not. I wouldn't consider myself a victim, right? The victims were the voters who deserve elections without these kind of tricks. But the reason why I was the target for FPL and others is that nobody else in state government was standing up to FPL like I was when it came to what they were doing to their customers, right? All of us being forced customers, whenever, and I'll just make a note. If you want to know what I'm talking about, FPL is asking Tallahassee for a $1.5 billion rate hike, right? For all of us are forced customers, 14% more on our bills on average. And Tallahassee's, just no resistance whatsoever, right? So they wanted me gone. The then CEO wrote an email to his political people that came out later publicly that he said that they wanted to make my life a living hell, because I was pursuing legislation that had broad appeal to try to open up and have more competition when it came to solar energy, right? Particularly for businesses that wanted to use solar energy on their properties. So, what I've learned from it, frankly, is that that's exactly the type of approach we need from Attorney General, right? Who is not afraid to continue fighting them. The fact that they did this, that doesn't make me afraid, right? That motivates me even more. And it's not personal, right? But that motivates me more, to ask the voters to send me to Tallahassee to root out that type of corruption and those type of corrupt practices. Floridians deserve better.
That should be an interesting race. Well, that's all the time we have today. If you have any thoughts or comments, feel free to contact me at jdefeaty@cbs.com. I do enjoy hearing from you. Thanks again for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.